All right, we are back.
What's up?
How are you today, my friend?
Today wasn't that bad. It's a good day at work. Got to talk to some friends, Can't
Yeah.
complain. Um, I'm home. Had to get the kid to bed. That was kind of crazy, but as always,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But I'm here. I'm ready to record. And how about you? How's your day, man?
Today was today was rough. It was
Oh,
not
no.
for any reason that I deserve to complain about. It was more just super boring. I mean, I had to have sat around for 3 or 4 hours today. It was so. I mean, uh, there's nothing worse than having ADHD and being bored out of your mind. I'm telling you. And just that fear
Yeah.
of playing on your phone and looking up stuff. And I was doing some research and I was looking at different things that I was gonna get on eBay and just all this stuff, but always looking over my shoulder to see if somebody's at my door, because I got a little office. And so there's a long elongated window on there. And if I hunch over my desk really close, then you can't see my face, and so people can't just like look through the door. Most of the time they'll knock, but sometimes people will do the whole knock knock, open the door rather than wait. So, yeah. But yeah, so I
Nice.
mean,
Nice.
nothing bad. It was fine. It was just boring. And like I said, being somebody that needs to be doing something almost all the time, it's really hard for me to sit still without a purpose. you know? So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure.
yeah, but other than that, I mean, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
All right. All right. Well, so what are we talking
To
about today? What's the topic of the
Well,
day?
I mean, we talked about hobbies, right? And so I think
Mm-hmm.
we are gonna go over two things that me and you are passionate about, two things that me and you are active in. We know a decent amount about. We have a good history with it, and that is going to be
Okay.
two different subjects that we will be asking each other questions about. And mine is going to
Okay.
be my retro game collection, and
Okay. Retro games. I like it.
yours is going to be about your photography. So it is going to be
All
a
right.
very interesting and you know two very different worlds, both of them with
Right. Right. Right.
they're very interesting to say the least. So
Yeah.
um
And and we're coming at this episode a little bit differently than we have previously. We're going to be kind of asking each other questions, deep diving, like coming at each hobby with like from a outsider's perspective. Ask the questions an outsider would ask, and just try to learn as much as we can. Um, Again, this is just what we like to talk about. Like deep dive this stuff and have fun hanging out and talking about the things we like.
Definitely.
So
And I know that I've talked to you about photography before, but there's actually a lot of questions in here that I don't know that I would, you know, very interested in. So hopefully I'll get some new information along with everybody else as well. So why don't I start with my number
okay.
one, which is when did you first become interested in photography? What was the first moment that you decided that this is something that you want to put effort into and time into learning?
Okay. Let's see. So I remember um it was probably a couple years before I moved out of California. My dad's friend, one of the guys we used to hang out with all the time, go to the RC car races and stuff. He was moving houses and he had some old electronics that he was just giving away or whatever. He had a camera that a little digital camera. I never thought about cameras really. We had the little Kodaks where you'd like take all the pictures and then take the roll into Walmart
Oh
or
yeah.
whatever and get it printed out on paper, right? That was all I ever experienced
Mm-hmm.
before then. And I remember thinking like, dang, that'd be kind of cool. I want that. But he like, I have two sisters,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And he's like, I'm going to give one thing to each
Right.
kid. And then he's going to go sell the rest of the stuff. So he ended up giving me something else that I don't even remember what it was, but he gave my sister the camera. And I was like, I remember being like frustrated, like, she's going to take pictures of rocks. And here I am today taking pictures of rocks. But
Yeah. Wow.
but I was kind of like, oh, whatever. Okay. So that was the first time I thought more than like a Kodak,
Mm-hmm.
like more like, wait a second, this could be cool. And I started thinking about like what I would take
Right.
pictures of.
Yeah.
Well, that dream died off because obviously I didn't get the
Mm-hmm.
camera. So it was probably 4 or 5 years later. Uh, I was in Washington State already, and I mean, it's a beautiful
Mm-hmm.
state. Way, in my opinion, way cooler than most of what I saw in California, at
Right.
least. There's a lot of beautiful nature, and I was surrounded by some cool stuff. So I was like, you know what? I remember like thinking about this photography thing, and like, there's a lot of cool stuff I want to take pictures of. So let me get into a camera. What's a camera? What is it? So I started researching it and trying to figure out what's what and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. And so I was like, yeah, you know what? I want to learn more. As soon as I started looking into it, I knew I was hooked
Mm-hmm.
already. I knew I needed that in my life. So eventually I ended up saving some money and getting a entry level, cheaper DSLR. But I got a
Mm-hmm.
DSLR, which is like a pro body,
Right.
with a detachable lens and everything. And in fact, it came with two
Mm-hmm.
lenses. And I took pictures of the dumbest things, but I still have those pictures and I still remember those moments. And that was what hooked me with
Right.
photography, was just being able to capture moments and remember
Mm-hmm.
them. So I look back and it brings up so much more than just the picture. You remember things around that
Mm-hmm.
time, not that day, not whatever, but just that time. Like, so it was, I was
Yeah.
instantly hooked.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can see that being a really good way, pictures worth 1,000 words and all that stuff is it's true, you know? A lot of people, using social media to share their moments, and it's not even just about other people seeing your pictures. It's about a living photo album, right? So,
Yeah.
looking back at dates, ups and downs, things you were interested in, it's just a history of you. So, yeah, that's really cool.
So, okay, I'll pop in my first question. Okay, I guess we'll wrap
Okay,
back and forth.
for sure.
Okay. I have mine written down here, so let's see what we got. I kind of want to ask you the same question. I'm sure it's written down here somewhere, but I guess kind of the same thing. Like, what made you interested in it, and how did you first decide retro games specifically were what was for you, and you wanted to start collecting and doing your
Well,
thing?
I'd say actively collecting has been going on for maybe a year or two, not too long, but I've always been interested in retro games. I think that some of the first games that I ever owned were on Super Nintendo, obviously like Pokemon on Game Boy Color,
Mm-hmm.
Blue, Red, and Crystal. I mean, those games I just put so much time and effort into. And growing up where that was cutting edge, that was the best of the best.
Yeah.
Um, it's just
So is it kind of like nostalgia related for
yeah,
you?
yeah. It's the
Okay.
just the way that the screen can be so vibrant and so alive with such simple detail, right? I mean, don't get
Mm-hmm.
me wrong. You look at some of the newer games. I'm a huge Dark Souls fan, so Elden Ring, some of the gameplay from that is just absolutely breathtaking, but there's something about getting the same like feeling from some of the older games. Um, Watching some of the cutscenes from a game called Shadow of the Colossus, which is literally, imagine this. It's a game that
Mm.
has no regular enemies in it. All it has is, I want to say 12, but it might be 16 boss fights, and that's it. So you are trying to take down these giant, like, building size behemoths. You have to crawl up their back. One of them, you have to go up on pillars, and when it swoops down to attack you, you have to jump on its wing and stab it to death. Like, you're trying to take down these titans to get a little, piece of each one so you can break the curse and wake your lover up because she's asleep. So I mean,
Sleeping Beauty. Okay, okay.
and so, like, just watching some of the cutscenes of this giant ancient golem, rising up out of the ground and all the rubble falling off of him, it's just an epic moment, and
Okay.
they just able
Heck
to
yeah.
capture that with older graphics is just really awesome. And then even before that, um, just one of my favorite games was Rayman, and Rayman was a side scroller, but it was very, they used a technique that they have detail. It's kind of like old cartoons, right? Old cartoons, they would paint a background and then they'd have the characters animated on the background, but the background is like a darker
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
shade, and
Yep.
it's
Yeah, I'm
stationary,
familiar. Yeah, yeah.
right? So it's the same thing with video games. They'll have stationary backgrounds, but it'll move on a slide, like when the character
Yeah,
starts
yeah.
moving, but the background, like the leaves aren't rustling. But then, so you'll have background, and then you'll have foreground, and then you'll have your character. So you have these three different layers on right on top of each other, and you forget that it's not
Yeah,
moving,
yeah.
but it is, because it feels like it is, because the animation is so, uh it just all vibes
Yeah.
together. I mean, I don't want to say like it's super crisp, because yeah, it's blurry from back in the day, but you know, playing games like Donkey Kong Country, that game uses a lot of that style,
Yeah.
and it just looks so amazing,
Yeah.
And so anyway, Super Nintendo, Donkey Kong Country, that was my first system. Uh, Yoshi's Island. I was really into Mario, really into Yoshi. Yoshi's one of my favorite characters, and so as far as what got me into it, what got me interested is the simplicity of it,
Okay. Yeah.
and mostly the nostalgia, and a little thought that I always have in the back of my head is that it's an investment. You know,
Fair enough. Fair
um,
enough. Yeah.
I did a whole video
Probably more
about.
so than my photography.
Well, I just did a whole video on my YouTube channel about how you go and buy a $50 game, right? That came out 20 years ago, 15 years ago. That game will be worth that or more forever. There's
Yeah.
never going to be more copies made. Nobody's going to find somebody hoarding a bunch of them. Like, that is going to be the price forever. And the only thing that's going to change is how many people are interested in owning original copies. So the price will always go up no matter what. And so that's something also that I have in the back of my head, is that I'm going to not only get what I put in back out of it, but it will also steadily increase over time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No, that was a good video. I watched it.
yeah.
Check it out. Heavy Dark Games.
All right. Thanks for the plug. Appreciate it, bro. All right. All right. So my number two, the deuces, is how much did your first setup cost? Why did you buy it over something cheaper or more expensive? Why did you choose the setup that you went with?
Okay. So I don't know what year it was. We'll say 2011,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. No, maybe like 2013, we'll say. 2013 is about the year I bought my first camera.
Okay.
I made the first purchase, okay? And I remember going and looking online and kind of looking around, and actually one of the best deals on a camera with different lenses, because I wanted to be as versatile as possible with the amount of money that I could spend.
Mm-hmm.
Um, First of all, I didn't have a ton of money. It was a stretch. I had to eat ramen for weeks and months,
Wait,
and
wait,
save money, and
more than you already eat? Because I mean, ramen
not much
is
has changed.
I was gonna say ramen is a dinner in this household.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, me too. Don't
Oh,
worry.
it is.
I'm about it. Every weekend I go out in the garden, I pick some veggies, I put them in, stir fry them up with some noodles,
Heck yeah. Perfect.
But yeah, so it was kind of a stretch, but Costco had this deal on, it was a Canon Rebel series T6i. I know that means nothing to you, but that's again a pro body,
Mm-hmm.
entry level though. But
Right.
like not too bad. For the time, it wasn't that bad. I
Mm-hmm.
think I paid like $600 for it, which
Mm.
again was a freaking stretch.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I knew you by then. I probably did. I think I did.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember me getting into that or not, but um, came with two kit lenses, like a longer zoom lens and then like a shorter wide lens.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to try different things and whatnot. And honestly, like anything cheaper wouldn't have been a pro DSLR body. It would have been some sort of like, I say pro, it's just not like a point and shoot like you see most people on vacation with these tiny little cameras on the little, wrist strap,
Mm-hmm.
That's a point and shoot. That's what they're called.
Right.
And it was kind of like the best thing above that didn't cost way more money.
Mm-hmm.
um, but I really enjoyed it. I used it for a long time. I still have it. I still use it sometimes. There was a super moon the other day, and I didn't have a long enough lens, so I busted that thing out and tried to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Didn't go well because it was a cool photo, but it's old, it's blurry. There's nothing wrong with that. Like we're talking about retro games,
Yeah.
Sometimes the old style is cool,
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, that was my first camera. That's how I got into it.
Yeah.
I think that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Um, so with money not being a factor, what would your ideal setup be? And would it be a stationary studio or would it be a setup that was more like a field setup, like mobile? Like I'm going to go out shoot on location. Cuz I would assume that you would need equipment different for both.
It
Yeah?
depends. It depends. If we're talking strictly photography,
Mhm.
I like being out and about, take pictures of all sorts of things,
Right.
cars, people,
Mhm.
uh, animals, architecture, landscape. Like all of that is kind of outside of the house, right? Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
I like taking pictures of things in the house. I've taken some of my favorite photos ever in my house. I
Oh
took
yeah.
this picture
That's
of this
awesome.
clay doll or clay figure, sorry,
Uh-huh.
with a toilet paper roll and a flashlight
Oh,
in
really?
a dark room. All right. So like some of my
Yeah.
favorite photos ever are in the house, but again, I think more
Yeah.
of the things I like to take photos of are outside. Now that
Mhm.
there's some cool setups you can do inside for product photography, portraits, whatever, and I wouldn't mind doing those.
Mhm.
But I think what would drive me to do more of an inside or like a studio setup, which I would love to have a studio, would be more of like the video
Mhm.
side of cameras.
Right.
Um, Again, it's kind of the opposite for me. So like for videos, I like taking videos of things outside, out and about, but I think I'd be more inclined to
Mhm.
do more things inside with video and more things outside with
Right.
photography. So, and then your question about having different gear, yes, and then for video and photography, even more so. So it just kind of depends
Yeah.
which direction I'd be going at that time, if you know,
Yeah.
on which when I
Well,
decided.
that kind of leads, yeah, that kind of leads into the next
Mm-hmm.
question I had, which was how closely related are cameras and video cameras? Um, they have different looks to them, but do they serve different purposes?
So,
Because
e-
I know that you can record on a regular camera, but is a an actual recording camera a better fit for that?
so I actually don't use a video camera. I use a DSLR, which
Right.
is a photography camera. But most of the time, when you
Mm-hmm.
see like YouTubers and stuff, they're using DSLRs now. Okay, you know when you'd see like AFV, I don't know who's familiar with that. America's Funniest Home Videos. Okay, you'd
Mm-hmm.
see like these big camcorder things. Okay, they're still camcorders and they're
Yeah.
still amazing. Or well, they are amazing now. They're still a thing though.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. Right.
but they kind of have different uses and different uh, just different purposes. Okay, so like for example, I play a
Right.
lot of disc golf and I watch a lot of disc golf on YouTube. They use camcorders
Right.
most of the time, and they have like a really long digital zoom range, so they can follow. You know, when you watch golf and they follow the ball freaking forever somehow,
Oh
and you're
yeah.
like, I don't understand how they did that. Well, they do that in disc golf too. They
Yeah.
follow the disc, you know, and it's with a
Mm-hmm.
camcorder most of the time. With a DSLR
Huh.
with a zoom lens, that's a lot more difficult to do. They do use that still, but it's, you know, it just depends on your use and kind of what you're doing. But
Right.
the benefit of a DSLR camera, like I have, and again, like what you see, what like kind of like what most YouTubers use.
Mm-hmm.
It's a camera with a detachable lens. Okay, um, you can take photos too.
Mm-hmm.
You can use different lenses and get different viewpoints and different, you know, there's a lot of benefits to a DSLR. It's more versatile for like your everyday person. I think camcorders have kind of died out as far as like they don't have as many uses. They kind of have niche uses.
Right.
DSLRs fill those other uses
Mm-hmm.
and other things. So like, why
Right.
not just stick with that? You know.
Mm.
Um, Now then you get into like, you know, pro level, like you know, the fancy rich YouTubers and commercials and TV stuff, and they have some
Mm. Big
real
old,
fancy stuff.
big old
Those
gear.
are like, I guess those would be considered camcorders, or I don't know what those would be considered, pro level cameras, but they're not like either really.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
One
mean,
of my favorites is,
you can't just like pick it up and take a picture. Like it's got to be on a little stand, right? They're so
oh,
big.
it's some of them, yeah, are huge, but one of
Yeah.
my favorite ones that like when I would dream of having someday, and you know maybe someday I can get myself into one. They're probably like this big, a big box, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and they're the company's called Red, and don't
Right.
get me wrong, they're expensive. They're like
Mm-hmm.
5 to 10 grand,
Right.
so they're really expensive, but they're like that's what the fancy YouTubers use, you know, Red
Mm-hmm.
cameras and things like that. I'm not saying they all use that brand, but
Right. Right. For sure.
um, that would be a dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
um, okay, let me go into my next question. Let's see. I'm just gonna start going down the list. I don't know if these are in any particular order. I don't think they are.
For sure.
Um, so if some of them seem related, but they're half an hour apart, I'm sorry. I don't really know. Um, if I'm like the person I am, and I don't really know, obviously I'm a '90s kid. I grew up in the '90s, like you did, you know. Um,
For sure.
but kind of being naive, what would qualify as a retro game? You know, what makes it a retro game? Like just from the newest
Right.
era of games,
So
or sorry, the oldest era of games, or what?
so retro is a relative term because
Mm-hmm.
the definition means to imitate a time period from the past. So,
Okay.
but the general consensus from the community, at least from the research that I've done, is 15 years or older. So, right now, as it stands, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Nintendo Wii is 7th gen consoles. and those are from 2005 to 2017. Now,
Woof.
people don't consider,
So anything older than
huh?
that, maybe? So anything older than
Yeah,
that, or
so some people wouldn't consider an Xbox 360 to be retro. It is a pretty severe turning point graphic wise from the predecessor, which was Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, Nintendo GameCube, and original Xbox. So it's a pretty big leap in graphics. It's a pretty big difference in quality and just kind of overall complicated mechanics. And so, from my understanding, I've gotten some pushback when I've claimed that a Nintendo Wii was considered retro, and so
it's I feel like it's a weird spot because like you said,
mhm.
2005, if you told me something was made in 2005, I'd consider that
That's
retro,
18 years
you
ago,
know, but
like today.
to 2017. So that it uh, you
Yeah,
know, what
yeah,
is it? It's hard to say. It's hard to say because yeah, they kept making them till
yeah,
2017, but 2005,
yeah.
it's pretty retro.
Yeah, so essentially 2005 and back. So that was your
Okay.
sixth generation. But I mean, I'm looking at this and they were making sixth generation games up until 2013. But I consider the Sega Dreamcast and the PlayStation 2 to be retro. I mean,
Okay.
it's just
Yeah.
from a
Yeah.
different time.
That's like when
Yeah.
we were kids.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's what would be considered retro for sure.
Okay. Okay. Let me pop into another one then. Uh, I guess I already kind of got that one. Like, okay, so I know you're probably chomping at the bit at this question. How much does it cost to get into different retro gaming? Okay, so like
Uh,
there's a freaking
oh
wide
yeah,
spectrum, I'm sure. But kind of like what are the different entry levels for people and what do those
for
consist
sure,
of?
for sure. So there's there's really cool things about retro game collecting and even just visiting, right? No, you don't necessarily have to collect. Like you can buy it, use it, and then sell it, right? It's not, you know, it's it's not as easy because you're gonna want to sell it to somebody that's into that kind of stuff. So, buying a PlayStation 5 game now and then selling it 3 months later, people are still like, this is a relatively new game. They want to buy it, right? But if I go buy Silent Hill 3 on eBay for $300 and, you know, beat it and I don't want it anymore, I have to find somebody that finds value in that game for $300. So there is, that's always something that you have to consider. And so I'd say, when you're getting into big hits, right? You get into like a game on original Xbox like Halo. Halo is an amazing game. It's a great game. It is a reason why it's such a successful franchise. They printed that game into oblivion. You can find copies for $5. So you have this amazing, great experience, a wonderful storyline, the entry to a franchise, and the history behind the whole entire thing, and you can experience that for $5, right? So it doesn't necessarily translate to the game is good, so it's expensive. It mostly pertains to almost the opposite sometimes. And it's kind of unfortunate is the worse the game is, the less prints that it has, making it have an it's not even artificial, it actually has a scarcity to it, right? A game comes out, it doesn't
Yeah.
sell, they decide to stop printing it to cut their losses. The game's really hard to find. So you can get an original Xbox for 50 to 100 bucks depending on how beat up it is. And then from there you can get like back in the day AAA titles made by the biggest developers from those times, PlayStation 2, uh, GameCube, all of those, you can get major hits from those eras, from those different consoles for, 10, 15, $20, right? But
Okay.
also on the flip side of that, there are some games that were really, really good that a lot of people have collected. And so there's a scarcity of them because so many collectors have them that are not willing to give them up, right? Because they want to keep them. And so then the ones that are actually being bought and sold, the numbers really low. So,
Mm-hmm.
some of those games that really hold their value are, like Mario Party, right? So there's
Yeah.
some Mario Party games for GameCube can run you $80, because they were just such good games. And then a lot of other things is franchises evolve and they change the core of what the game is. And so the older entries have a more pure look at what the intent of the game was, and so people will play them
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
because it hasn't taken that step,
Yeah.
right,
I've
to
I've
become what
seen
it is today.
yeah, I've seen games like, you've got the original crew of like 10
Mm,
people or whatever, and they have a dream and they create that dream. And then like iteration 2 and 3 and 4 come out, and those people slowly leave, and then the dream
yeah,
changes to something else. And what?
yeah,
What's going on?
yeah.
Um,
It almost
and
feels like a completely different franchise at that point.
yeah, and another thing, kind of to circle back, I think, um, something I've experienced. So I'm not a retro game
Hmm.
collector, but there's things about the nostalgia of those games that
Right.
just hit different. I need that in my
Hmm.
life. And so
For
I
sure.
look it up, and I don't know how to look for retro games, right? I'm just a
Hmm.
naive wannabe that wants to buy this thing. So
Yeah.
I've looked into getting some older handheld consoles. Okay, so like Game
Right.
Boy. Game Boy was huge for me
Right.
because I could play it in my room. I could play it in the car.
Hmm.
I didn't get a lot of time with the TV. I didn't get a lot of time to watch TV. I didn't get a lot of time to play consoles on the TV.
Hmm.
So handheld consoles for me were a bigger deal as a kid. Okay,
Right.
and so I played Game Boys. I played mostly Pokemon. I played like Tony Hawk Pro Skater. I played like Donkey Kong and some of the other ones, right? But Pokemon was the most nostalgic.
Oh yeah.
So my point in that is there's these obviously special edition consoles from back in the day.
Mm.
Okay, and
Hmm.
like I try to look up a special edition Game Boy that's Pokemon edition, and you've got
Yep.
Game Boy, $100. Pokemon Game Boy, $600.
Yeah.
Whoa, what's going on? So
Yeah.
so I'm sure that's
Yeah.
kind of another huge leap, or I
Yeah.
guess category of retro gaming, is that like elite level.
Yeah.
You got to have some cash to get
Yeah.
these like really rare special editions and stuff.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. So with retro gaming, there's a couple of different ways that you can go about it. For me personally, I my OCD, everybody's got a little bit of it, and it's just that thing that that thing that bothers you when you don't do it the same every single time. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not diagnosing anybody with OCD, but I'm just saying I feel that there's a thing that everybody has. They're just like, I've always done it this way. I like the way it looks. I like the way it feels, and I want it to be like that every single time. And so for me, it's collecting objects, and it's not just games, complete with the manual, the original artwork on the box, and the game or item. Now that goes for I was looking at memory cards for Dreamcast. I Rather than buying just the memory card, I wanted the one that was complete in the box with the manual and everything just so that I can have the box to display.
Even though you were going
And
to use the memory card.
Exactly. And so
Okay.
little things like that can be you know, it's preference, but all my games have the manuals with them. All my
Mhm.
games have the original art covers. The boxes themselves, or I mean the cases for the games are replaceable. So, you know, they just get scuffed and scratched and grimy. I've tried to clean them and to, you know, some success, but consoles, I have one console that does not have the box, but I actually just got it in the mail today from eBay. PlayStation 1 in box,
Ooh.
PlayStation 2, my PlayStation 3 is on the way. Dreamcast, original Xbox, Super Nintendo, and then my more modern consoles is a Nintendo Wii, Xbox 360, and I believe that's
You can call it
oh
retro. You tell those haters.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
retro.
I know, right? I know, right? Yeah, I mean, PS4 is not retro to me.
No.
PS3 is cutting it close, but yeah, I don't know. I think that the
I feel like
360,
PS3 still had like it was like a peak. It was like a
yeah,
an era. Just like the
yeah,
retro games. It wasn't
hmm,
retro, but it was an era, you know. It was an
yeah,
important one, I feel like. Anyway,
yeah, yeah.
but
No, PS3 is definitely important, and actually, so without going crazy bananas, how much do you think a PlayStation 3 costs? Now, granted, there's two different types.
okay.
There's uh the backwards compatible one, and then there's the non backwards compatible one.
Let's say we'll say the backwards compatible one 200 bucks, non backwards compatible 150.
Yeah. Okay. So the backwards compatible one, just the console, is about 200.
Ooh, I'm so good. I
So
have no idea. I swear to
e-
God.
no, no, no. But that's the thing. That's for like a pretty beat up one.
Oh,
They usually go for about 250 to 300 depending on the condition.
nice. Okay, I
But
suck at this game.
I got one on eBay, and it's my OCD getting on me. Had
Oh
to get a
no.
complete in box.
Oh no.
It cost me $600. But that's what I'm talking about, man. Like to find something that's like none of the pieces are missing, all of the
Pristine.
original hardware is there, the original manuals, the original advertisements,
I want to start selling
and the
some stuff.
original. Well, the biggest thing, and this is something for everyone to keep in mind. The box that comes with your console, it matters. Okay. I can't tell you how many eBay listings that I've found where I'm just like complete in box and it's a Nintendo 64. I actually spent like 3 days just typed in Nintendo 64 complete in box and I saved it on my searches. So every time something was listed, it would give me a notification. I'd look at them, right? So complete in box, the boxes would be ripped or they'd have tape on them or the boxes would be bent. One of them had a bunch of holes poked in it. And it's like, for me personally, I want to get the box that at least looks nice enough to put on display, right?
Sure.
And I'm not saying it has to be mint. I'm not saying it has to be perfect. I'm just saying I don't want to get like some guy was selling a game that I really wanted, but it had been chewed on by a dog on one of the corners.
Mm,
And so the game was rare and it was probably like $20 less, but like the art book, like the art cover for the actual PlayStation 2 game, it had like bite marks on it. And
yeah.
it's like, no, I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
It would bother me so much to look at my game collection and see that one of them is damaged. And then another one was like a super rare Rule of Rose for the PlayStation 2. PlayStation 2 is my favorite console, so I know a lot of prices for that. I believe it's going for about 250, and this person was selling it for 150, but that's because when she opened it up, you could see clearly that the manual had like a wave on it, and she said that it had water damage.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so the front cover, like the bottom part was slightly smearing and you could see ripples from the water damage, and so did the booklet. Game was fine, but it's like that would bother me. So I'm just not interested in that. And if you're not a hardcore collector, I mean, you can buy re the reproductions, right? So
Okay.
somebody somewhere figured out what type of paper they used, because it's like a glossy, thick kind of paper for the art covers, and they printed them out in the original font, original size, everything, cut it out right to size, and they sell them on eBay. So you can get replacements for these older titles that are just absolutely pristine mint,
Huh.
and they're like $5, right? So that's
Huh.
pretty sweet. So, but that would bother me too.
So
It's just, I don't know what it is.
your OCD seems, as you called it, seems to be more focused on complete inbox, complete everything, original, good
Yeah,
condition, all that. Do you
yeah,
dabble in the rare, random um, uh, versions or whatever?
yeah. So my Wii is a 25th anniversary Wii. So um, or the 20th anniversary Wii.
Dang.
So when when the Wii came out, they made it into Oblivion, right? You can get a Wii. I actually had that in my video as well. Um, I was finding Wii's on Facebook for $30. Okay, and so they're not worth much. People will sell a Wii with 40 games, 16 controllers, and all the peripherals you can think of, and it'll be like $100. So the Wii's not worth anything, but the limited edition special version of it, which is red, uh, that one's more sought after. So that costs a good amount. Just the other, like maybe a week or two ago, I got a Halo 4 edition Xbox 360.
Oh,
It
it's so
came with
cool.
it's I have it on my Instagram and TikTok. It's pretty sweet. I mean, I haven't even played it because I have so much on my backlog right now, but it just looks so different. It's like if I'm gonna do something, I don't want just the base model. I want it to, like, if I'm investing in this, if this is gonna be something that I'm super into, then I want to go big or go home, so to speak, right? So that's not knocking anybody. It's just,
That's your
this is a
preference,
personal
and that's
choice.
fine.
Yeah, this is a
Yeah.
personal choice, and I work for it. I do. It's not cheap, and I do extra things to earn the money to pay for it. So my bills don't suffer, because that was when I was really into Magic. That was something. It's like, well, I guess we're eating ramen this week because a bunch of cards came out that I really want. So we don't do that anymore. Okay, we're responsible adults. So
Yeah, I've been there a few times. Whoops.
yeah.
All right.
So
What else do you got for me?
yeah.
What other kind of questions you got going?
All right. So next one is, what is your favorite thing to take pictures of, and what are the top 5 things that you would like to take pictures of? Things that are not readily available for you. Things uh like, just for example, I'm just throwing this off the top of my head, so don't laugh. But I mean, like, somebody causing an explosion, like let's just say people are mining minerals out of the side of a mountain, right? And they place the dynamite, they explode it, you capture that moment, all the rubble, all the dust, everything super high res, right there, right on the spot. Like, that's not something that you can just do, right? Or seeing like supercars on a racetrack, right? That's not something that you can just, oh yeah, I feel like doing that, and just go do, right? So what are some things that you like to take pictures of personally, like every day, whatever? And then what are some like cool things that you would want to take pictures of.
Okay. I, Photography has like, because it's all like considered an art, right? Whether you consider,
Right.
any individual considers it's art, the person
Right.
taking the photo considers it's art. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
because it's so, like, each photo is unique. Yeah, there's things that like all people take pictures of the same thing. And so there's a million pictures of it, but
Oh yeah.
it's still like everybody's is slightly different or whatever. Okay. And so there's categories to that. There's
Mm-hmm.
portraits, people, dogs, whatever. There's landscape, there's products, there's cars, there's or automotive, I guess. There's all sorts of stuff. Okay. I mostly take photos of like none of those. It's really random. Like
Yeah.
I kind of like take pictures of whatever I can that I think I can make look cool. Okay.
Right.
Again, I'm going to just go to this
Case
example because you can
case in
see it in the
point.
video.
Yeah.
That is a figure that's about this big, a little clay guy. I got a yard sale for about $1. Nothing cool, but the
Yeah.
photo looks like it's in a museum, you know.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
that was the thing. I wanted to find a way to make it look cooler than it was. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, again, I'm sure there's people who are like, oh, that's kind of lame. To me, I made it look way cooler than it is. you
Oh
know,
yeah. Yeah.
uh, the picture I had last week was a car in a junkyard. It looks pretty sweet,
Yeah.
to me again. So I kind of, it's kind of random. Um, what I do take pictures of,
Mm-hmm.
what I would like to take pictures of is probably landscapes. So like
Mm-hmm.
that requires traveling, and that's why I can't do that right now. I
Mm-hmm.
can take some landscape esque photos around me, and I have, but I would like to take photos of like really cool places,
Mm-hmm.
whether they be nearby or not. And cars, I love cars so much. Cars is like one of the biggest things in my life, I
Mm-hmm.
don't get to enjoy cars nearly as much as I wish I could. Going to
Right.
shows and um, meetups and stuff and going on cruises with people. That's what I really like to do, but I don't get to. And I'd like to take pictures of those cars, for my
Mm-hmm.
friends, for my homies. Hey, let me get some cool, like some sick photos of your car so you can have those and print them out. I'll print them for you, even
Yeah.
not because I'm going to sell them to them. I just want to do that because that's
Mm-hmm.
fun. That's cool to me.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing I really like try to dabble in, but I need to learn a lot more and I want to get good at is product photography
Right.
because I feel like product photography is in essence in basically what I do take pictures of. I don't take pictures of products per se, but like again, I try to take maybe weird random items and make them look cooler than they are. That's kind of
Mm-hmm.
product photography. You're trying to take a product and make it look sweet, make it look like
Mm-hmm.
buy me, please.
Yeah.
And so I'd really like to get into product photography, maybe even like not professionally, but to the point where I could make some side cash on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Um, and then I just kind of got into a lens that's a super long zoom lens. I'd like to
Mm-hmm.
get some sweet wildlife photography.
Yeah.
I really like birds. I really like reptiles. I really like fish. I can't take pictures of fish, I guess, but you get the point. Like, I want to take some pictures of some
Well,
wildlife.
okay, so that leads me into a different question that I
Mm-hmm.
have, which is, do you see yourself going on vacation somewhere to just do photography? If so, where and why? And what are your goals to capture, i.e., exotic animals,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
architecture, like you said, or like a festival that happens once a year, or natural beauties like waterfalls and whatever. So, do you see yourself like, I am only going to see this here, So I want to go there and focus, just on this. And where would it be?
So I have a couple answers. The answer is yes, and mostly yes.
Yeah.
We'll start with the yes because it more pertains to your question. I I would absolutely go somewhere just to take pictures of something, whether that be
Mm-hmm.
again a car meet,
Mm-hmm.
uh, a country, a country. I kind of, as I talked about in one of our other episodes, I'd really like to explore the food and stuff too. But
Mm-hmm.
I would take so many photos. I wouldn't put my camera away. I'd charge
Yeah.
100 batteries and just take photos all day, every day. I'd have to buy 100
Yeah.
batteries, but
Yeah.
uh, and then I guess the second portion of that question is or answer again. I think I mentioned this in another episode as well. We're trying to
Mm-hmm.
build an overland vehicle so that we can go
Mm-hmm.
exploring. It was in our vacation episode, so that
Right.
we can go exploring. It, the initial cost of building an overland vehicle can be daunting. You can spend a little bit, you can spend a lot, but either way, it can be
Mm-hmm.
kind of daunting. But then after that, your vacations are pretty cheap. You're just paying
Mm-hmm.
for gas to go places and
Yeah.
food, but you're paying
Definitely.
for food anyways if you're at home, so it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really differ, right? Um, that being said, we're building an overland vehicle so that we can go explore beautiful places all across the country and like
Right.
see things that you can't get to otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
In doing that, I 100% plan to just take pictures of every every trip we take. In fact, I would really like to do some videos of like our adventures and stuff as a family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that my plan for the future, at least, is very heavily camera focused, no matter what we're doing.
Right.
Um, again, yeah, answer your question. Yes, I would go
Yes.
somewhere specifically for it, but I also have plans to do all sorts of things with a heavy emphasis on photography.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Well, okay, so when it comes to, let's see, what have you learned, different styles, different techniques and practices that have your made you better at your craft? So, just go over each one briefly. I'm not, I'll try and, understand it the best I can, but I mean, is there certain things that you've picked up that you look back and you're like, my original pictures maybe weren't as I wasn't as pleased with them as I am with the ones that I take now because of
mhm.
certain practices.
I think
So,
there's a few things to say to that. I'll say there's like three main things. There's
mhm,
I learned how to use a camera.
mhm,
It sounds easy. There's a lot of buttons. There's a lot of theory. There's a lot of in this situation you do this. In this situation you do this. And so there's a lot
mhm,
to learn. There's a lot to remember. There's a lot to like. It's not as easy as like math. 2 plus 2 is always 4.
right,
But this setting and this setting doesn't always equal this. Like it depends on other factors.
right,
Okay. And that's kind of my other two answers is like I learned lighting, how to use
mhm,
light, how to use the either the natural light that you're in or artificial light to really like bring the scene together.
mhm,
Um, and then telling a story. Now, you think, oh, well, maybe that's just more of like a video thing. Not really. Again, with photography, since it's a quote art and you can do whatever you
mhm,
want and try to express whatever you want, that in itself is kind of like a story. You're trying to express something. You're trying to show the feeling or show the like vibe of whatever moment you were in. Again, this photo, I'm just going to keep mentioning his photo. It's trying to be like, oh, that's a rare artifact from some ancient civilization, or that's kind of like what I'm going
mhm.
for. Again, it was a $1 purchase at a yard sale.
Yeah, it's the neighbor's lawn ornament.
But I'm just trying to like either tell the story as I see it with my own eyes in that moment, or
Mm-hmm.
like create my own story with the photo that I'm taking. So
Right.
the story, the lighting, and how to even use the camera. Those are three things that have changed what I've been capable of doing greatly just in the last like couple years. It's
Right.
improved greatly. But yeah, like, yeah, I have cooler gear and stuff. That helps. It can be nice, but without those other three things, it doesn't matter nearly as much. Again,
Right.
I've gotten some of the best photos I've taken in the last few years with my old camera from 13 years ago or whatever I said.
Mm-hmm.
2013, I think I said.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool.
Um.
Um.
So Anthony, I've got some more questions here.
Yeah. Okay.
What are your favorite retro games? Like, what are your top like five? We'll just say five in order,
Mm-hmm.
favorite to fifth favorite.
Okay. All right. So I think my favorite game that I could play all day long is Yoshi's Island, Super Nintendo. Honestly, the art is fantastic. Yoshi's my favorite. Um, it's got a good difficulty curve to it. Um, it's got a lot of it's they're not achievements, but it's actually got a really cool kind of mechanic to it where if you so each level is ranked on how much collectibles you get, and then you get ranked at the end, and it's out of 100. So if you get 100% on every single level in one world, because there's multiple worlds, then it unlocks 2 secret levels. So you can beat the entire game and not unlock any of the secret levels, and then you have to go back and 100% everything to unlock those. So that's really cool. But yeah, I mean, as far as like fun, and I've memorized almost all the levels because I just played it so much. It really brings me back, and yeah, it's got to be one of my that is my favorite. Um, Probably second. Um, I'd say Pokemon is pretty high up there. Uh,
Heck yeah.
and that's and just for the sake of like not taking up multiple slots, I'm gonna say first and second gen. So
Okay.
I think it
Fair enough.
kind of fell off conceptual wise for the Pokemon when you get to like third gen, so like Ruby and Sapphire. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love those games. I played them a lot. The graphics definitely got turned up way
Yeah.
higher,
I
but
It's the same for me. I mean, first gen, second gen, I think I lump those into like my number one favorite Pokemon
yeah,
series. Third gen, I really like. I probably like it a little more than you do, but I think that's when I stopped liking all of it.
yeah.
Like at that point, I'm like, oh, you know what? I like 75% of these Pokemon. The rest
Yeah.
are, meh. And then from
Yeah.
then on, it
When
kind of
they
died
when they
off.
start yeah, when they start animating garbage cans and ice
Yeah,
cream cones, I'm just like, "Oh man."
never mind.
Yeah, no thank you. And so, yeah, Pokemon and it's the same thing every single time. And I don't know what it is. It's just that catching everything and trying to 100% your Pokédex, and you know, yeah, I know I can beat everybody with this Pokemon, but I really like this one, and I really liked him to evolve. And, you have to do this at a certain time of day in order to get the Espeon, do this at a certain, with this stone in order to get, this Pokemon. And so, or trade with this. That was like the worst, was when
You had to trade,
you
yeah.
only, yeah, when you only get one, and I'm not talking about like trading with another player like in real life. I'm talking about there were certain people in the game that would have a Pokemon that you could only get from them, but you had to trade a Pokemon that you only get one copy of in the game. And so it was like this trade off where it's a Pokedex entry, but you're giving up like I don't get that one anymore. And the other one that
Yeah.
really upset me was the dang Safari Zone,
Mm,
because trying to get a Tauros and a
stupid
Chansey
Chansey. Yeah.
dang Safari Zone. It's like a 1% chance. And oh my gosh. And then it's a 1% chance for it to like actually spawn.
Oh, and then
But
it's
then the
you're not catching it.
odds, oh yeah. You're
So
just like,
recently I played this
let's
Pokemon Fusions game. Okay, it's
right.
this like emulator that you can download on your computer and play, but it's still in like the old school like tiny screen on your computer with like the
Yeah.
tiny little graphics.
Hmm.
The Safari Zone. So in Pokemon Fusions, like you can fuse any two Pokemon. You can change the settings so you can kind of play the game however you want, but like
Right.
after that, the game is what it is. Um,
Hmm.
and you kind of you can fuse and unfuse Pokemon so that you can make whatever kind of weird concoctions you want. It's pretty cool because
Right.
the community can make the little sprites and submit them, and they all vote and they like add sprites to the game, and so it's very community driven
Hmm. Very
by
cool.
Pokemon lovers. And so it's like it's a cool thing, even though it's an emulator. It's actually super cool.
Right.
And anyways, Safari Zone is the same thing
Hmm.
though, but it's like random Pokemon. So I'm running around and I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't know if I'm looking for Tauros or Chansey. It's just random things put together. And
Hmm.
because I have the settings set to random. And so whatever the rare Pokemon is that's quote Chansey is really like something else, like
Hmm.
Shelder and Geodude or
Got you.
whatever. It doesn't matter. And so I finally run into one and it's super rad. Just the coolest thing. And I'm like, oh, thank God it's not something dumb. I'm gonna try to catch it. Nope, nope. Just like Chansey, I didn't catch it, and
Yeah.
I spent so much time in that stupid
I
Safari Zone.
know. I know. Yeah, it is heartbreaking. I think I had a
uh,
Tauros spawn once, and it's like what really was upsetting was when like the treats. You're
mm-hmm.
supposed to throw the treats at them and it's supposed to do something,
Supposed to like
but
make
it
them
never
happier,
does. Yeah,
but
but it
then they're
never
like,
does
"You threw
anything.
something at me," and they run away.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've had them run away or it'll say Tauros became uh very cautious, or whatever they say, and it's like he's staring at you or whatever, and it's like what the heck is the point?
What was the
Like,
point of this treat?
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, what are
So
your other
anyway,
games? What else we
okay,
got?
so third is Conker's Bad Fur Day. Now, it is a very random game. It is very odd. It is very strange. It is for mature audiences only, and it's for Nintendo 64.
Okay,
So, Conker's Bad Fur Day is Conker is a squirrel.
heck
And
yeah.
on his 21st birthday, he gets drunk. His girlfriend gets kidnapped, and she's a squirrel too. And you have to go across all these crazy biomes with different cartoon characters to rescue her. And it has a lot of pop culture references. It's got a lot of adult humor, and it says a lot of bad words. So just
Uh,
to name a few things that happen in this game, you have to go to the prehistoric time and fight a giant caveman. To beat him, you have to get on the back of a T-Rex, which is way smaller than him. You have to, I believe you have to bite him in the nuts to get him to bend over, and then you have to bite him in the butt cheek, and that's his health. And you have to rip chunks of his butt cheek out.
oh my God.
Okay?
I've never
So
even heard
that's
of this
one.
game.
No, I know. It's absolutely insane. Another thing that you have to do is you have to go up a spiraling mound of poop to the top of a poop mountain, and then you have to go inside said poop mountain and fight a giant singing poop monster by throwing toilet paper into his mouth. Okay? And
What?
he sings opera, so he goes, oh, and when he opens his mouth wide, you have to take toilet paper and throw it into his mouth. Okay?
What a
That
weird
is just,
game.
it is very weird. You find yourself storming Normandy Beach, okay? And you are part of the Squirrel Brigade, and you are storming Normandy Beach fighting against mutant teddy bears. Okay. This game makes references to Terminator. This game makes references to The Matrix. This game makes references to Alien. I mean, this game is so insanely weird, but it just is so fun and crazy. You have to you get bit by Dracula and you turn into a bat and you have to like fly around a level, and it's like one of the only times that you get to fly in the game.
I've never heard
But
this.
I
I'm
mean,
gonna have to check this game out.
dude, you got to check it out. Nintendo 64, dude, it's so good. And it's pretty, and because it was so good, it's very expensive.
Fair enough. Fair
I
enough.
think a loose cartridge is like 120.
Nice.
My grandfather, so weird, dude. My grandfather played it. Um, Granted, he was about 50 when he passed, so he was probably playing it when he was in his 30s, and he passed it down to me, and it was in the box, and it's $350 for this game when it's in the box. And so I was
Ooh.
just like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And I'm never, I mean, obviously, I'm never gonna get rid of it. I mean, not only is it like an heirloom, but it's also like I remember playing it at his house and being like, oh, I hope my mom doesn't find out I play this game. But anyway, next after that is going to be the Ratchet and Clank series. So Ratchet and Clank 1, 2, and 3. I did reviews on all of them on my YouTube channel.
Good videos.
Um,
Just saying. Check them out. Heavy Dark Games.
yeah, appreciate it. Um, yeah, so um, yeah, they're very very nostalgic. My PlayStation 2 came with and I tried looking it up and I couldn't find it. So I don't know if it was like a deal that was just at that store, but it came with ATV Off-Road Fury 2 and it came with Ratchet and Clank. And so that was how I got into it. Was like, oh, bought this new system. It came with these two games, ATV Off-Road Fury. I'm not really into racing games, especially not those kinds, but so I'll check out Ratchet and Clank, and I loved it. The characters are
Yep.
awesome, the action is awesome, the humor's awesome, the buddy, these two characters that don't really get along at the beginning, but then find common ground to be friends at the end, fighting towards a common goal to save the universe from Anyway, and so it's oh man, it just brings me back. I love the Ratchet and Clank series, at least the first three. When it gets to Deadlocked and after, it's kind of I haven't really stepped into that realm too much. I did play Deadlocked all the way through, but that was a long time ago. But Ratchet and Clank, good characters, good storyline, very fun. And then for my last one, it's I think back to games that I played a lot. This one's weird because it's not a console game. It's Age of Empires for
Okay.
PC.
Yeah.
All
I'm
right.
sure there's a lot of
Now,
people that have spent a lot of time in that game.
yes. So I don't know what year it came out. It had to have been super early because I remember playing it at the library at school. Okay. I remember playing co-op with some friends. You could do LAN parties because all the computers were hooked up to the same network. And so you couldn't play online, but you could bring a couple buddies
Yeah.
and we'd try and get a game done in a half hour. And it's like, no, you build your army and go attack somebody because you're not going to have enough time to do all the research and gather all the resources to get to the next age and everything. So it's just like, boom, go, get it done. And so, but dude, I I love that game. It's so
So
fun.
while you're talking, I had a few games stuck in my head, and I got to mention them. We'll call them the
Mhm.
honorable mentions. I won't go into detail,
Okay.
but just my
Right.
favorite retro games that I would,
Right.
after speaking about it with you, kind of consider retro. Okay, so I think number one, the most nostalgic one, or the one that stuck with me the most, anyways, is
Right.
Diablo 1.
Right.
I'd consider that retro. It was printed in the 90s. It's
Well, it's
super old.
PS1, isn't it?
No, it's PC. They didn't do
Oh yeah,
console until
it.
Diablo 3 or 4. 3, I think.
Uh,
3. Yeah, 3
well,
was the first one.
I believe
But
Diablo 1 was on PlayStation 1 because I
It might be now. I don't think it originally was.
No, 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 not originally, but yeah, it's Diablo 1 is on PlayStation 1.
Huh. I don't know if that was originally. Anyways, doesn't matter. Again, I don't want to
Yeah,
go too much into detail, but just okay. So Diablo
sure.
1,
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
Lemmings.
Let me.
Shout out if anybody
Okay.
knows what that game is.
All
Now that's
right, I gotta
retro if
look
I ever
these
heard of
up.
it.
So are all these PC
Not
or
all of
was
them,
that for
no.
a console?
But that one is
Okay.
also PC, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it, dude. You got to try Lemmings. That's a cool game. Uh,
Okay.
while we're on it, and this one's gonna be for the '90s kids. I hope somebody remembers this, but I count it. I'm counting it.
Uh-huh.
Line Rider.
Line Rider? Is that
Heck yeah.
a All right, let me look this up.
So it was a game that we would play in the
Oh my
library at
gosh.
school.
Yes. Yes. Is it don't you have to like draw the line for
Yeah,
the guy to go down?
it's
Isn't it a flash game?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, no, that is yes. I
Oh,
definitely
it's
remember playing
so
games.
good, dude.
Yeah.
You like
Yeah.
I don't it's the dumbest thing, but it was so much fun.
Yeah. You're trying to get the swoop right to get him to
Yeah,
land where you wanted
yeah,
him to
yeah.
land. Yeah.
We would
Oh,
make the most
that's
crazy courses and anyways, it was a lot
yeah.
of fun. Um
Hmm.
Pokemon for sure, obviously has to be.
Oh yeah.
And then console, I'll make one console game.
Okay. All right,
Uh
let's hear it.
Spyro.
Spyro.
It was like
Yes.
Ratchet and Clank for me because it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, you could like beat the levels and whatever, but like trying to 100% get all the gems or whatever and get
Yeah.
all the little treasure, and you can't get to them sometimes because you have to like learn this new flying ability or whatever, double
Yeah.
jump, and then you got to come back to the level. And anyways, loved that game. It was super fun.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
those are
No,
mine. I
that's
just wanted to
awesome.
mention them.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, dude. That's awesome.
um, Man, Line Rider, it's so good. That's such a good. You should have said Line Rider. Just saying.
Oh
um,
man.
okay, I got a couple more questions. Let me get through
All
some
right.
more questions.
Okay.
So is I don't know if this is part of what you're interested in. I'm sure there is some, but for you at
Mhm.
least, is there like some sort of like community competitions that you're interested in or involved in, or is that something that you're just not into?
Well, I think that so for me, I'm definitely casual. I'm not
Okay.
a speedrunner. I'm not 100%er. I 100% um, Ratchet and Clank 1 out of principle. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've
Mm-hmm.
always wanted to do that as a kid. And so I was like, I owed it to, you know, 12-year-old me or however old I was when I played it. I mean, it
Yeah.
was a long time ago, but it's like I've always wanted to. So I was
Heck
like,
yeah.
I gotta put in the work to do it. Um, yeah, I mean, just like Mortal Kombat and Call of Duty, you know, they have uh community. Most of the I mean on current gems is so easy, right? It's so easy to just go online and just say, "Hey, I'm hosting an event." Boom, everybody's online. Everybody does it. With Xbox and back, you have to physically be there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know anything about it, but
Okay.
I guarantee you there's people
Yeah,
that
yeah.
do.
I know
There's
I've heard of it. I just was curious if you were interested or involved or
I mean, I'd be interested to watch other people beat the crap out of each other with, on these side to side fighter games,
like
but
swinging the controller and hitting each other or like
oh, no.
oh
I mean
oh
like
oh,
Street Fighter 2, for Genesis. I'm just so bad at that. Um PS2 first person shooters I could probably be okay at. I'm pretty decent at Halo on original Xbox, but yeah,
we got people at
those
work that are
older
making bets over like Guitar Hero, all right? So,
yeah,
just saying.
yeah, definitely.
Okay, well here, let me move on to the next one. I thought this was maybe it's a random question, but
Mhm.
just curious, how long do you see yourself continuing this hobby as far as like actively collecting? And then
Mhm.
how long do you think you'll actually hold on to the collection?
Well, I think that if I were to just give an answer, I'd say I don't really see any reason why I would stop. I mean, I guess if you, because I mean, there is a finite number of games, right? Eventually, you will collect them. You spend enough money, you spend enough time hunting them all down. I knew a guy in Grants Pass where I used to live. He had a he had every single Nintendo 64 game ever made, and it cost like 5 or 6 grand over X amount of years. But he hunted them all down. He made sure he had every single copy of every single game except for one, and that's because it is a Blockbuster exclusive, and it was like $500.
What does that mean? Blockbuster exclusive.
So this game was very weird. It had a release to the public, and then it had a release it had a release that was only for Blockbuster to rent out. Blockbuster went under, they kept all their copies. Somebody found them in a warehouse, and these versions are different than the original version.
Hmm.
So Blockbuster got their own Blockbuster exclusive version of the game that has special characters, different content in it. It's not much, but it's rare. It's just rare
Yeah,
because they
yeah, yeah.
didn't make very many of them, right? You only needed like two per store, maybe three. And so somebody figured it out, somebody found them, and it says not for resale on the front of it, and that's the holy grail of Nintendo 64 is Clay Fighter.
Man, do you remember? I mean, I don't know how many people listening even remember, but Blockbuster. Man,
Yeah.
you go in there on a Friday night after school, your parents get off work,
Oh
and you're
yeah.
like, all right, what movies are we getting? What games are we getting? What are we doing this
Oh
weekend?
yeah.
It was
Well,
like
you
a
know
thing.
where I was is I was in one of two places. I was either in the video game section or I was in the horror movie section trying to scare myself. I'm like looking at the back of some of these movies and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, this looks so good. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, no way." Oh man. Yeah,
All right.
Blockbuster is crazy.
Heck yeah. Well, that was my questions, I think. I think that's most of
Yeah, no,
the
I
good
think
ones I had.
that is a peek into our interest, a peek into our hobbies, things that we're passionate about. I hope you can hear that in the way that we talk about these specific subjects.
Absolutely, yeah.
Again, these are so polarizing. They're so, this end of the spectrum and this end. It's just awesome to be able to talk with you and just see how much you care about it. And
Same.
I think that that's an important lesson for everything in life. Um, I think that even if you don't enjoy something the same amount that somebody else does, just seeing how happy it makes them and seeing somebody that has put the time in to become better than most at something, that's respectable, and it's
Yeah.
it's awesome to see.
Yeah, yeah.
It's I consider it a lot like cars. Like for me, I like Civics. I like, Subarus and Nissans. When I see a lifted truck, I'm just like, I wouldn't do it, but I can appreciate somebody taking the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
putting the effort and money into making it look nice. Like you said, overlanding vehicles, something like that. And it's the same with like motorcycles or, you know, whatever. It's like that
Yeah.
might not be my style, but at the same time, you can just see somebody took the time
I think
to make it what they wanted.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's just awesome to see.
That was one of the things growing up in California that, I'd go to the car shows with the Honda kids, but there'd be all
Mm,
sorts of low riders, lifted trucks, uh,
yeah.
supercars, there'd be crazy stuff there. And it was
Mm,
cool to just appreciate all of it. I was
yeah.
there to look at the Hondas,
Yeah.
but it was cool seeing all the other stuff. And I think
Yeah.
speaking of nostalgia, like I think that's kind of nostalgically why you and I are such good friends. Is like for a long time we've talked about things that were similar but not the same. You
Yeah.
know, you played RuneScape, I played World of Warcraft. We would
Right.
talk about video games. I think we would even sit in the same room and play our different games and just chill.
Yeah.
And we did that all the
Yeah.
time, and we would compare them
Yeah.
and like contrast, and it was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
Just we
Yeah.
didn't play the same games. We didn't do per se the same thing, but we found common ground, and that made us really close friends.
Yeah.
And here we are, freaking 10 years later, podcasting about two very different things.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show, like you're saying, like just because you're not as passionate about something as someone else, give them the time of day, and respect the thing that they're doing, inquire, ask questions like we are to each other, and
Hmm.
it means a lot to people, and it can really make some really good friendships, relationships. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely something that I've made it a point to, when somebody is passionate about something, if there's ever a way to get on somebody's good side, ask them about something they're passionate about.
mm-hmm.
Even if you like my buddy, he's super into guns, right? I don't know anything about guns. I don't really care for guns, but I like shooting them with them. It's cool. But I'll take like 20, 30 minutes asking him about everything about his gun. You know, what this and that and that and this, and I'll just ask him a bunch of questions about things that he just said, and it's like, just seeing how happy it makes him to be like, oh, dude, I got this and I got that, and I think about myself when, just talking with you now. I love talking about things that I'm passionate about, and
Mm-hmm.
so anyway, that'll be that'll be this episode. Uh,
Absolutely, it's a good time.
yeah, dude. I mean, this is awesome. I'm having a great time. Um, brings up all the old feelings, all the old memories. So it's
Yes,
just
sir.
it's just a good time. So, um, but yeah. So we will see everybody later.
Yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for hanging out.
All right. See ya.